Honestly, our marriage was falling apart. 3 hours on the road, and neither of us had said a word. The deserted road stretched out in front of us, lit only by the car's headlights. "Mark, I don't know if this was a good idea," Sarah said, her voice trembling. I couldn't blame her. The plan to spend a weekend at an isolated farm to save our marriage sounded kind of crazy desperate, but we were on the brink of ending everything. We needed something radical, something to break us out of our rut. When we finally saw the entrance to the farm, an old iron gate creaking as it opened, I felt a shiver run down my spine. The lights of the main house glowed in the distance. Sarah held my hand, and I could feel her fear. As we parked the car, we were greeted by a tall man with a wide smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Welcome to Redwood Farm," he said. "I'm John, the manager. I hope you enjoy your stay." There was something unsettling in the way he looked at us, as if he could see beyond our facade of a regular couple. As John guided us around the farm, introducing us to the other staff, the feeling of unease only grew. There was Alice and Tom, a muscular young man who greeted us with a sinister smile. Each of them seemed burdened with a dark secret. That first night, I was awakened by a strange sound. The clock read 2 a.m. I heard footsteps outside our cabin, followed by indecipherable whispers. I woke Sarah, who was pale with fear. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my voice almost a whisper. She nodded, eyes wide. I went out to investigate, my heart pounding in my chest. The shadows of the trees seemed to want to swallow us whole. The whispers continued, more intense, like a chorus of ancient voices. When I reached the clearing, I saw a group of people gathered around a bonfire. They were the staff, performing a ritual that left me paralyzed. Their chants were hypnotic, and fear kept me hidden in the shadows. I went back to the cabin, trying to calm Sarah. "They're doing some kind of ritual," I whispered, seeing the terror in her eyes reflect my own. That night was long and sleepless, every sound amplified by our growing paranoia. Something was terribly wrong with that farm. The following days were a mix of daily activities and a growing sense of despair. Sarah and I tried to integrate into the farm's activities, following the schedule of harvesting, meals, and couples therapy sessions. The idea was to reconnect, to find a new spark amid the simplicity of rural life. On the first morning, we were taken to the field to pick apples. John and the other staff showed us how to select the fruits, while Sarah and I couldn't ignore the staff's furtive glances. It was as if they were evaluating us, measuring our reactions, waiting for something. One afternoon, while we were in the kitchen, we noticed a locked door. "What's in there?" we asked. "Just supplies," Alice replied with a forced smile, but her eyes betrayed deep fear. "Mark, I feel like we're being watched," Sarah whispered, her voice full of dread. I tried to reassure her, but deep down, I felt the same. There was something in the whispers we heard at night, something in the staff's looks, that made my skin crawl. 2 days later, we decided to investigate the restricted area of the farm. We waited until everyone was asleep, or at least pretending to be. We moved silently through the darkness toward the clearing where the rituals took place, our hearts pounding with adrenaline. Hiding behind a tree, we saw the disturbing scene. The staff were gathered in a circle around a bonfire, their faces illuminated by the flames. In their hands, they held objects that looked ancient, carved with symbols we didn't recognize. Their chants were hypnotic, a dark melody that seemed to penetrate our souls. In the center of the circle was a wooden table, stained red. Sarah squeezed my hand tightly, her eyes wide with terror. "Mark, we need to get out of here," she whispered. But before we could move, one of the staff members raised his head. It was Tom, the muscular young man. His eyes found ours. "Run!" I shouted, pulling Sarah by the arm. We could hear the shouts and quick footsteps of the staff following us. Fear propelled us, but the farm was a labyrinth. We felt the shadows closing in around us. Our desperate attempts to escape were futile. We felt strong hands grabbing us, pulling us back to the clearing. We were thrown to the ground, surrounded by dark faces. John approached, his creepy smile still there. His voice was a cold whisper. "Now you will be part of our ritual." Tied up and helpless, we were forced to watch the macabre ritual. The chants grew louder, the shadows danced around us. We felt our worst fears being ripped from the depths of our souls. Sarah was crying, and I was desperately trying to think of a way to save us. John, with that cruel smile, approached us, holding a rusty, stained blade. "This ritual is more than you can imagine," he said. "You are here to be transformed, to be freed from your earthly bonds. He raised the blade and began to chant, his eyes fixed on mine. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. Suddenly, a scream pierced the air. It wasn't Sarah's, nor mine. I looked around, trying to locate the source. One of the staff members, Alice, was on the ground, writhing in agony. Tom ran to her, but before he could reach her, she stood up, her eyes glazed and a strange smile on her face. "No, this is not how it should be," she murmured. Confusion spread among the staff. John shouted for order, but it was too late. Alice lunged at him, grabbing the blade from his hands. In a quick, unexpected move, she turned the weapon on John, plunging it deep into his chest. The look of surprise and pain on his face was the last thing I saw before the clearing exploded into chaos. I took advantage of the distraction to free myself. My fingers were numb, but adrenaline gave me strength. "Sarah, quick!" I shouted, helping her free herself. We ran into the darkness, leaving the turmoil behind. The chants had turned into screams of panic and pain. We found refuge in a small tool shed. We could hear the sounds of the struggle in the distance, but we knew we didn't have much time. "Mark, we need a plan," Sarah said, her voice trembling. She was right. We couldn't just run aimlessly. We needed to find a way out of the farm. As we searched the shed, we found a map of the farm. There was a trail that led to the main road, a chance to escape. With a map in hand, we ventured into the forest. We finally saw the road. The relief was immediate but brief. Suddenly, we heard quick footsteps behind us. We turned to see Tom and another staff member running toward us. "Run, don't look back," I shouted, pulling Sarah. Our feet pounded on the asphalt, the sound of our escape echoing in the silent night. We reached a point where the road split. With no time to think, we chose a path and kept running. We could hear our pursuers getting closer, their shouts filled with anger and determination. Suddenly, a bright light appeared in front of us. A truck was coming our way. We waved frantically, shouting for help. The truck stopped, and the driver, a middle-aged man with a worried look, signaled us to get in. "Get in quickly," he shouted. We climbed into the truck, our bodies exhausted and covered in sweat. The driver hit the gas, and the truck sped down the road. I looked back and saw Tom and the others falling behind, their shouts fading into the distance. Finally, we were safe, or so we thought. Hours later, when the truck stopped at a gas station, the driver turned to us, a strange smile on his face. "You got far, didn't you?" he said, his voice carrying something I couldn't identify. "But don't worry, you're safe now. Welcome back to the farm." Before we could react, the truck door opened, revealing John and the staff, all smiling maliciously.